Ömer Şahin's kebab house in Istanbul is still reeling from months under lockdown. The restaurant used to be packed with customers during lunch hour. And although business has resumed, many tables are still empty.
This restaurant has been serving since 1994, and we couldn't imagine such a period before the pandemic. We had to shut down completely from March to June in a bid to protect the health of our staff. But we continued to pay their salaries during the period without exemption, even though we suffered a loss of 60% in income.
The food and drink sector, which employs nearly 2 million people directly, has been worst affected by the strict lockdowns, which brought much of the economy to a halt. After gaining 4.5% in the first 3 months of the year, Turkey's GDP contracted nearly 10% year-on-year in the second quarter. That's better than analysts had forecast. The contraction was led by services, which shrank 25%, and the manufacturing sector, which lost more than 18%. But the economy is showing signs of recovery. Figures from the Turkish Statistics Office, also released on Monday, show that the country's foreign trade deficit narrowed to $2.7 billion in July. In mid-March, Ankara unveiled a $38 billion aid package, followed by an increase in credit provision, as well as interest and tax cuts to reduce the burden on businesses and citizens. The services sector has no doubt suffered the most from lockdowns. To help restaurants and cafes get back to business, the government last month cut the value-added tax from 8% to 1%. And industry officials say that's not only thrown a lifeline to the sector, but also benefited its customers.
The tax cut has really boosted consumer spending and has therefore been crucial to reviving our sector. What's also helped business owners is that the tax on office rent has been halved from 20 to 10%. The government has also provided allowances to compensate people for shorter working hours. That has now been extended by 2 months, which has helped offset a rise in unemployment.
The stimulus measures, however, have come at the cost of the Turkish lira, which has lost around 19% in value against the US dollar this year. Yet, Turkey's $770 billion economy has performed much better during the pandemic than many of its peers in Europe and developing nations. The government believes the worst is over and projects a contraction of just 1 or 2% for the year. And as economic confidence is up for a 4th consecutive month in August, restaurant owners like Şahin are confident their tables will fill up again soon. Sibel Karkus, TRT World.
Well, for more on this, Erhan Aslanoglu joins us now from Istanbul. He's an economist and vice rector of Piri Reis University. Welcome to the program, Erhan. Now, as we heard there, Turkey's economy actually fared better than other emerging economies as well as the Eurozone. What do you make of the latest GDP figures out of Turkey? Are they better or worse than you expected?
It's almost what I expected. Thank you very much, first of all. It's in line with market expectations, financial market expectations, and in line with my expectations also too. What I see at the figures and from my observations, indeed the recovery of Turkish economy started by June, the last month of the second quarter. The first 2 months of the second quarter, actually the April and May, the economy suffered a lot because of the COVID-19, and the damage to the economy was very huge in this period. But thanks to credit expansion and credit impulse of the government, the recovery started by June, and it seems to continue in the third quarter as well. But from now on and the fourth quarter, the picture seems to be changing a little bit. The fundamentals or my expectation at least, and the expectations in the market is changing due to change in financial conditions in Turkish economy.
Yes, I want to ask you about what we can expect from this current quarter just in a moment. But responding to the figures on Twitter, the Finance Minister Berat Albayrak said that the GDP data was good compared with other countries and that Turkey was determined to wipe out the effects of the coronavirus in 2021. How does the government plan on doing that?
I think so far the government tried to achieve this by credit expansion, by credit impulse. But because of some side effects of this credit expansion, like rising current account deficit and somehow inflation, the governments, I expect, will heavily focus on the fiscal policy. The government expenditures is likely to rise, and also maybe in some items we can expect some tax cuts, although we have some rises in recent days in car automobile industry. But what I expect is the contribution to Turkish growth will come from the fiscal policy from the government. When we look at the figures in the second quarter, the contribution of the government as government consumption or investments were more or less negative. But it's likely to be more in the fourth quarter and probably in the next year, because the minister said that the fiscal deficit targets will not be so much more important, at least in the short term for us. We can exceed the 3% budget deficit target in the short and medium term. I think I read this as a signal to focus more on the fiscal policy.
And just quickly looking at this current quarter, what can we expect from the growth figures when they're released in a couple of months' time? Will it show that the worst is over?
Right at the moment, yes, it seems. We will see a V-shaped recovery. So I expect that maybe the economy may grow 4 to 5% in the third quarter. But in the last quarter of the year, the growth figure is likely to be around 0%, +1, -1, because of the high base effect of the last year. Because in the last quarter of the last year, Turkish economy has grown very strongly. And besides rising interest rates and due to uncertainties of COVID-19, I expect some slowdown in domestic demand and also not so quick recovery in external demand. So in the third quarter, 4 to 5% growth is likely, but in the last quarter, I expect almost a 0% growth. And the whole year would be around, by the way, between -1.5 and almost 1%. And we will see with the next coming data and how the COVID-19 will proceed from now on.
Okay, Erhan Aslanoglu, economist and vice rector of Piri Reis University. Thank you so much again for joining us.